Good evening. Tonight, Southeast governors unite against killings, kidnapping in the region and agree to proffer more practical solutions. 24 months without pay, that's the pain of magistrates in Cross River State as they take to the streets in protest. Tonight, we continue with our sectoral review of the year 2020 with the Judiciary in focus. And U.S. state of Georgia goes to polls for a second round vote that will decide whether President-elect Joe Biden's Democrats control the Senate. Plus business, sports and later international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, World Bank forecast 4% growth for the global economy in 2021 after recording 4.3% contraction in 2020.
And on sports news tonight, the Confederation of African Football announced that Confederation Cup game involving Rivers United and Bloemfontein of South Africa has been postponed.
And from Abuja, large crowd returns to NIMC office in the capital city ahead of January the 19th deadline for linking of national identity cards with mobile phones.
Apart from the northeast, which is the hotbed of killings and terrorism in the country, the governors of southeast states today united on a common front to raise concerns over rising cases of killings and kidnappings in the region, and they have promised to nip the acts in the bud. Following their virtual meeting, the chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum and governor of Ebonyi State, David Umahi, says the 5 southeast states also dissociate themselves from a bipartisan meeting convened by some stakeholders from the region on the security situation there and called on those concerned to instead speak out and condemn killings within their domain.
The governors are so much worried on the killings and kidnapping that are going on by our people in Southeast, killing our own people and then killing security agencies. And the situation is being heightened by the activities of very desperate politicians, this time irrespective of party affiliations. There are so many desperate politicians, in all the political parties that are so desperate for power, and they've aligned with some bandits in Southeast to destabilize the nation.
Governor Mahi also seized the opportunity to shed more light on a viral social media video relating to the eviction of some Nigerians from the northern part of the country resident in Ebonyi State.
The Fulani settlement that decided to move to Taraba State and retain some of the family members in Ebonyi. And of course, the man is still here. And a politician, as we have intelligence gathering, went to put a voice and say that it's the Igbos that are chasing away the herdsmen from Ebonyi State. Such a video went very wide and was causing panic in other parts of the country. And so that is very, very much uncalled for. Because we also have our people, over 11 million of our people living in the north. We have so many of our people living in south-south and in southwest. And so when these people do this, they think that they are doing it to pull down a particular governor, not knowing that they are doing it to start killings, against our people.
From the southeast, we move up to the north to Kaduna State, where the military says its air and ground troops of Operation Thunderstrike have killed several bandits during a joint operation in Beningwari, Giwa, Igabi, and Chikun local government areas of the state. According to the Kaduna State Governor, Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, the bandits were sighted by the fighter jet crew of the Nigerian Air Force at Yadi, forcing them to engage the bandits in a fierce battle. He explains that the bandits were also sighted with rustled cattle and attacked along the track connecting Kuduru and Ungwangyako areas. He also disclosed that other locations covered appeared calm with normal activities as ground troops conducted clearance operations in Sabon and Dogondawa. To court matters now, no fewer than 30 Cross River State magistrates today staged a protest at the state governor's office in Calabar against the non-payment of their salaries for 24 months. The Chief Magistrate Court of Odupani, Safia Ashipu, who protested along with the two sons, and 29 other magistrates, carried placards bearing different inscriptions showing the hardship they have been through. A magistrate, Richard Bassi, also reportedly collapsed at the gate of the governor's office during the protest. The 11 magistrates from Obudu local government area, where Governor Benayade hails from, were also part of the protest.
As we speak, we are all sitting magistrates manning different courts in the state, dispensing justice for the peace and tranquility of our state, Cross River State. Now, we kept on waiting for the state government to pay us our salary. And I know some persons will be asking, why has it dragged on to this point? Why are we protesting now? We decided not to protest all this while, in order to give peace a chance by dialoguing with the government. Dialogue has failed. We have written to the executive arm of government, through the secretary to the state government, the attorney general of the state. We have written to the legislative arm of government, we wrote to the Speaker of the House of Assembly, we wrote to the Deputy Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, even the leader of the Cross River State House of Assembly. We've met one-on-one with the Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly on this matter. We've met one-on-one with all the acting chief judges of Cross River State Judiciary. We've written to the Judicial Service Commission of Cross River State on this issue. Up till now, no salaries.
To another legal matter related to politics now, a federal high court in Abuja has admitted the original certificates of Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki as evidence in the alleged certificate forgery suit instituted against him by the All Progressives Congress and a chieftain of the party, Mr. William Sedobo. The presiding judge, Justice Ahmed Mohammed, admitted the documents as exhibit, while the defendant's first witness, Charity Agobwakina, attested to their originality. The documents admitted are his first school leaving certificate obtained in 1971, ordinary level certificate obtained in 1973, and higher school certificate obtained in 1976. Other documents admitted include the Bachelor of Arts degree certificate issued by the University of Ibadan in 1979 and a master's degree certificate issued to him by the Pace University in New York in 1994. Counsel to the plaintiffs, Akin Olujimi, had raised an objection to the primary school certificate and original copy of his certificate from the University of Ibadan. He said the documents were not front-loaded and all arguments in respect of the objections raised will be taken to the final written address. We're not done yet with the judiciary. Like many other sectors of the economy, the judiciary was totally unprepared for the rampaging COVID-19 pandemic. But how did the legal profession respond to this and other challenges in the year 2020? In continuation of our assessment of critical sectors of the country, our judiciary correspondent, Shola Shirley, reports the key elements that shaped the judiciary in 2020.
With the spread of the coronavirus across the country, the federal government initially issued directives and regulations for a partial shutdown of economic and social activities. Taking a cue from the government, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Mohammed, also ordered a partial shutdown of the courts from March 24, 2020, which effectively suspended sittings except for matters which were considered urgent, essential, or time-bound, according to the extant laws. The implication of this was that some stakeholders started to clamor for a recourse to technology in line with global trends and especially to deal with the growing caseload. The Borno State Judiciary took the lead and was the first to conduct virtual hearings. Lagos quickly followed suit with Ogun and the FCT courts also joining in early. On the 4th of May 2020, judicial history was made in Nigeria and also in the world. For the first time ever, via a video app Zoom, a man was sentenced to death by hanging.
My personal disappointment is that we did not rev this up. We just tend to relax once the cause of immediate cause of some pressure is released from us. The moment the pandemic didn't appear to have done the sort of damage many of us thought it would do, and there was relaxation of the lockdown and activities returned. Again, the judges more or less insisted on in-court hearings.
Apart from the impacts of the medical emergency on the judiciary and the seeming reluctance to adapt and stick with technology, a lot of lawyers are still struggling to wrap their heads around two interesting and somewhat controversial judgments of the Supreme Court on the 2019 governorship elections in Imo and Bayelsa states. On February 13, 2020, a day before their swearing-in, the court nullified the return of the Bayelsa State Governor-elect, Mr. David Leon, and his running mate. A month earlier, on January 14, 2020, the same court nullified the return of Governor Emeka Ihedioha of Imo State and ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to issue a fresh certificate of return to Senator Hope Uzodinma, who the commission had initially declared fourth in the polls.
No one has been able to analyze that judgment to today. The basis upon which the Imo State Governor was declared the winner of the Imo State gubernatorial election is still a legal conundrum for many people to understand how the Supreme Court arrived at that decision.
Two other decisions from the courts also generated a lot of interest in the year 2020. One was a decision also of the Supreme Court delivered on May 8, which overturned the judgment of a federal high court convicting Senate Chief Whip and former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu. On December 16, the Court of Appeal Abuja Division nullified the 7-year jail sentence handed to a former spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Olisa Metu.
I am proud of the panel of the Court of Appeal that took a good swipe on the High Court judge who personalized a criminal proceeding and went ad hominem, attacking the accused person as if they had quarrel.
Issues of financial autonomy and adequate funding of the judiciary was also a major talking point throughout the year 2020. The year ended with the Nigerian Corruption Index report of a pilot survey of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, released on December 1st, which ranks the judiciary as the most corrupt sector in the country, with about 9.4 billion naira in total said to have been offered as bribes, especially in election matters.
Most of the members of the political elite believe that judgment can be bought, that justice can be compromised. That frame of mind must stop.
It remains to be seen if the perception of the judiciary as the most corrupt institution will change in the year 2021. Not much has been seen with the change of guard at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. With a change of guard in the leadership of the Nigerian bar in the year 2020, many lawyers look forward to a united and disciplined bar in the new year. Shola Shoyeli, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we'll continue with our sectoral review of the judiciary in 2020. We'll be joined by a senior advocate of Nigeria and the former president of Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Mrs. Buma Alabi. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Southeast governors unite against killings, kidnapping in the region, agree to proffer more practical solutions. 24 months without pay, that's the pain of magistrates in Cross River State as they take to the streets in protest. Tonight, we continue with our sectoral review of the year 2020 with the Judiciary in focus. And the U.S. state of Georgia goes to the polls for a second-round vote that will decide whether President-elect Joe Biden's Democrats control the Senate. To more legal matters now, a chief magistrate court in Abuja has fixed Friday, January 8th, for ruling on the bail application filed by Omoyele Sowore and 4 others standing trial for alleged criminal conspiracy, unlawful assembly and inciting public disturbance. Chief Magistrate Mabel Shegun Bello fixed the date after hearing the application for bail moved by the lawyer to the defendants, Marshal Abubakar, and the objection by the prosecutor.
Mr. Omoyele Sowore and 4 others stand in trial for alleged criminal conspiracy, unlawful assembly, and inciting public disturbance arrived the courts in handcuffs. With the removal of the handcuffs from the defendants, legal fireworks begin over the bail application filed on their behalf. The lawyer to the defendants argued his motion, seeking for bail, but was immediately opposed by the prosecutor. The prosecutor in his submission insisted that the defendants were better remanded in prison custody, but the defense lawyer countered the submission. After listening to the arguments of both parties, the court fixed January the 8th, 2021 for ruling on the bail application. Following the complaint of the defendants, the court ordered that they be remanded at a police facility with adequate medical attention. The prosecutor and the defense lawyer, however, maintained their positions on the bail application.
The court has also made some other consequential orders, which is to the effect that they should be allowed access to medical care. They should be allowed access to food and proper treatments for the injuries that they suffered while the SARS operatives had attacked their gathering and had injured them in the process.
We react to the bail application filed by the defendant applicant, and the court adjourned for Friday for bail ruling.
With the supporters chanting songs of solidarity, the first defendant, Omoyele Sowore, narrated how they were denied food and medical attention at the Kuje Correctional Center.
As you are aware, we were sent to Kuje prison yesterday on the orders of this court. When we arrived there, contrary to what the judge said, we were not given any medical support, no food, no water. We were just put in an isolation center.
Chief Magistrate Shegun Bello, while adjourning the case to January the 8th, also ordered the police to provide the third defendant, Damilare Adenola, who is a law student of the University of Abuja, with internet facilities and writing materials to enable him join his classmates who resumed online classes on January the 5th.
The Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses resumed sitting today after taking a break for the Christmas and New Year holidays. Part of the petitions heard by the panel include the one involving the Lekki Concession Company and Felix Lucky, Mark Chidebere and Blessing Ensemble, all against the Nigerian police. In the fourth petition of Felix Lucky, a witness, Moki Chigozie, was called to testify, and he narrated how he got into an altercation with a police officer, Sergeant John Dagbo, attached to the Lasson Police Division, which culminated into his being allegedly shot by the officer on October 20, 2020. On the matter involving the LCC, the company's counsel, Mr. Rotimi Seriki, renewed an application seeking permission to access the toll gate for the purpose of evaluating the damage done for insurance claims. But his application was kept on hold after the chairman of the panel, Justice Doris Okuobi, announced that the Lagos state government has paid a huge sum of money to forensic experts to unearth the truth on what happened at the Lekki toll gate on October 20th.
We cannot sacrifice justice on the altar of speed. The forensic analysis will clear a lot of issues from evidences adduced in the course of the investigation on the incidents of 20th October 2020, when we are indeed not out to hand out on even ground for any party in the course of our assignment. A huge sum has been paid for the forensic examination by the Lagos state government with the desire that the panel unearth the truth. In the circumstance, the order sought to for the repossession of toll plaza must await the conclusion of the exercise of the forensic expert of the panel. LCC has waited for over 2 months, and we are bothered by that position, but we are compelled to do justice to all persons in the course of the assignment, and will not succumb to any sentiment that the reopening of the toll could spark off any reaction. Mr. Agulano's submission that status quo be maintained pending the assignment of the panel will not be supporting the cause of justice.
Our review of the judiciary in 2020 continues tonight. Our judiciary correspondent, Shalashi Eli, is here with us for more on the assessment of the judiciary. Your report was pretty comprehensive, I should say, about all the activities of the judiciary. But we see that the global pandemic affected almost every sector, and I'm sure the judiciary was not left out. What stood out really was the people resorting to technology to save the day. Was that the case with the judiciary in 2020?
Thank you, Amarachi. Indeed, that was the case with the judiciary. Depending on who you ask, a lot of lawyers will tell you that, yes, the judiciary rose to the occasion by adopting technology. There has been a concern about the need to use technology. It's in line with global trends, and the judiciary has been slow to adapt to that change. And so a lot of people will say, yes, the pandemic came with all these disruptions, and the judiciary moved on to technology. But some other people will tell you that the judiciary was very slow to move on to technology. For me, I expected that the judiciary would have stuck with technology. I mean, this has been in the works for a long time. We've been talking about the digitization of the courts for a very long time, in line with global trends. And when the pandemic forced us to use technology, we moved on to technology. But surprisingly, a lot of us who thought that the judiciary will stick with technology are disappointed, because after the pandemic, it appeared like...
The pandemic isn't over.
Yes, it's not over. With the pandemic, I think it seemed like, there was not so much damage. In fact, from some of the reports that we showed on the news tonight, you saw that the courts were still very full. People wore their face masks, but there was no social distancing. So you find that some judges come to court. They're sitting up there. The lawyers and the litigants are sitting there, and they don't mind. They won't complain as long as, they are insulated. But for some other judges, they would complain and say, no, this is not healthy. We can't sit like this. You have to decongest the courts. There's no social distancing. And then they would ask that the courts be decongested. And then, of course, if you're a senior advocate, you can only appear with one person. If your matter is not going on at that moment, then step out so that those whose matters are going on would be heard. And even for us judiciary correspondents too, they would say that, everybody is there representing different media houses. And they would say, limit it to just one person. to cover the court proceedings. I remember that in the case of Naira Marley, the Attorney General of Lagos nominated me to cover the proceedings on behalf of all the judiciary correspondents in Lagos State. So I had to share my notes. I had to write in longhand because for some reasons, the police seized my phone. And I had to write in longhand and share my notes with other judiciary correspondents. But if we had stuck with technology, because the pandemic is not yet over, it's still here. If we had stuck with technology, we could have sat, except for the broadcast journalists, we have to take video shots and all of that. Most people could have stayed in their house and followed the proceedings online. But surprisingly or disappointingly, the judiciary seems to have abandoned that. I know there are complaints about funding and the need for us to, to put more funds in there to get the things to work out properly. But it's disappointing, really, that the judiciary has not stuck with technology. And I mean, I think that is one of the best things that the pandemic has forced on us, and we should carry forward.
Yeah, and I just want to call your attention to one of the stories we took tonight, which was, the magistrates in Cross River State who are protesting 24 months of non-payment of salaries. And I thought to bring that up with you, how remuneration for the judiciary was in 2020.
Again, that is another big issue. The issue of funding. The judiciary has been complaining about inadequate funding. Well, at the federal level, it's not so bad. But at the state level, if it made the president to sign off on order number 10, for the financial autonomy of the judiciary, but it's still a big issue. And that's what you see playing out in Cross River State. Funding, very big issue in 2020. We're still nowhere near financial independence of the judiciary.
Shola, thank you again for being here tonight. Not very often we get to see you on this side, of the camera, but a great pleasure having you on the set tonight.
Thank you.
And for more insights into the judiciary in 2020, we're now being joined by Mrs. Buma Alabi, a senior advocate of Nigeria and the former president of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association. Thank you for joining us tonight on the News at 10.
Thank you very much.
2020, of course, was not an easy year for Nigeria, including the judiciary. I've just been talking to Shola about that. How well would you say a third arm of government was able to tackle the challenges and disruption to its functions?
Well, I'd say that third arm of government is the most misunderstood and most maligned arm of government in any way you want to look at it. How on earth can we refer to the judiciary as the most corrupt institution in this country? With the police we have, the customs we have, and all of these others, it's ludicrous. And because they can't speak for themselves, people get away with these sorts of things. It's just not right. And we cannot get away from the fact that funding is a big issue. They're hugely underfunded. The pandemic happened in sort of first quarter of the year, well after budgets had been passed, which was well under the requirements in the first place. And when I say the requirements of the everyday citizens, the litigants that go to these courts for justice. And in spite of that, they were able to find ways out of those meager funds to, continue with providing service and access to justice to the Nigerian people. As Shola said earlier on, Borno State was at the forefront of this, and we all know what's going on in that state. Rivers State, I know as well, and so many of the other states began to work with technology. We know how expensive it is. I, for instance, in my little law office, had to work from home and make sure all the lawyers worked from home. That meant that they all had to have an internet device to be able to access the internet. They had to have, the access paid for those services. And it was an additional cost to our usual everyday running cost. They were able to do this, and urgent cases were heard. I was in court today. I know that social distance was certainly observed by the court and the court officials. Where that fails, it is not usually, in my experience so far, and I've been in court several times all through this pandemic period, it's not usually the fault of the judiciary. all the staff, because they will come in there and remind litigants and participants in the courtroom scene of the rules. But Nigerians will not obey the rules. They behave no differently in the courts than they behave elsewhere on the roads and everywhere else. And so you then turn around and blame the judiciary for the behavior of litigants and people in the room, despite their best efforts. I think that's unfair. And we need to bear in mind that this is the one arm of government that cannot speak for itself by convention, by the nature of what they do, and therefore we owe them a duty to be very, very careful about criticizing them and ensuring that we actually speak for both sides of the story on their behalf, bearing in mind, like I keep saying, that they cannot speak for themselves.
Yeah, and
I think they've done extremely well. They've done extremely well in the circumstances with the paucity of funds and technology. They've done extremely well, in my view and in my experience.
Well, great assessment there, but what reforms would you like to see happen in the administration of justice delivery in 2021?
What I'd like to see happen is greater funding for the judiciary. I would like to see greater independence from the executive arm of government. There's far too much interference from the executive arm in the judicial arm of government, and that needs to reduce in order for the judiciary to actually work at optimum in this jurisdiction. The judges are trying their very best, working extremely hard under punitive circumstances. I'll give you an example. Lagos Court of Appeal is highly subscribed, and as a result, there's a huge backlog of cases. The Court of Appeal literally moved all the judges from the other divisions into Lagos. They were sitting in the National Industrial Court, they were sitting in every courtroom in order to clear that backlog. That's going way beyond the call of duty. So it's not the judges that we need to be looking at. It is the funding and the independence from interference from the executive arm that we need to focus on to give them a better chance of doing an even better job than they're doing at the moment.
Indeed, and I'm really hoping, that the judiciary gets the attention it deserves. Mrs. Buma Alabi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former President of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, thank you for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
A pleasure.
Away from the judiciary, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has criticized the delay in the implementation of the UNEP report in Ogoni land, accusing the federal government of playing politics with a cleanup exercise. The governor made the comments during the commissioning of the first phase of the Sakpenwa Bori Road in Ogoni by Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu State. His promise to do more for Ogoni people.
You deserve more because you've contributed so much to Nigeria. Those are the exact words of Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State to the people of Ogoni as he commissions yet another road in the area.
Governor of Rivers State, commissioned by His Excellency Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, Governor of Enugu State.
This time is the first phase of the dualized 16-kilometer Sakpenwa Bori Road, constructed to improve the standard of living of the people.
Your Excellency, what we are seeing today is promise made, promise fulfilled.
And for the stakeholders in Ogoni, Governor Wike is a liberator.
Our people have said, I should thank you for this wonderful road. This road will boost the economy of Ogoni land. Will bring development to Ogoni land.
The River State government's latest guest is the governor of Enugu State, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, who commends his counterparts' insight into infrastructure development.
I'm aware that many projects have been commissioned and many more will be commissioned in Rivers State under your watch. Today's event is significant as it epitomizes the desirable fellowship among colleague governors while providing opportunity for experience sharing and other discourse in service delivery.
For Governor Wike, the people of Ogoni have been ignored for too long.
What do we mean by development? This is what we call development. You can leave Port Harcourt and come back home any day, any time. You can. And before you know it now, I'm sure most of you have started selling the land on the road. I know you've started. So, when it says city, what makes a city? This is what makes a city.
The completion of the dualized Sakwenwa-Bori Road will ease commuting to other major areas linking the community.
Integrated Logistics Services Limited, Intels, has denied claims that its business is being affected by political influences from the Buhari administration. Former vice president and co-founder of the company, Atiku Abubakar, yesterday explained that he was forced to divest his shares in the company because the Buhari administration has been preoccupied with destroying it since 2015. But in a swift reaction by its spokesperson via a statement, Tommaso Ruffinone, Intel says the firm and its parent company, Orlen Invest Holding, have always operated according to market logistic. The statement reads in part, the company has always operated according to market logic, thanks to its history and commitment to the development of the Nigerian economy in the oil and gas logistics sector. The ongoing contradictions are part of a natural commercial divergence, which will hopefully be resolved as in the past, by a new approach in the interest of all the parties, also according to the social role that Intels plays in the country. According to the firm, the severance from the world of Atiku Abubakar is an economic decision in the exclusive interest of the company and to irreconcilable strategic differences with the new governance structure of the Intels Orlen Invest Group. Linda Kigbe is in Abuja with some more news here on the News at 10. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. Welcome to Abuja. Prospective enrollees in the ongoing National Identification Number enrollment exercise continue to flock around the headquarters of the National Identity Management Commission in Abuja, with some accusing officials of the commission of demanding bribes in the process. Some of these enrollees, who also allege there is nepotism, insist that such conduct is slowing down the process.
The number of people seeking to register for the National Identification Number at the headquarters of the National Identity Management Commission increases by the day. Majority of the people here do not adhere to the COVID-19 safety protocols as they queue for a special number which will enable them get registered. Some who have completed this process relay their experiences about the alleged bribery and nepotism which some say have taken over the process.
Everybody have been standing stranded here, so even they are even being partial about all these uniform men. They are giving special treatment to some people, especially officers and some prominent people that they really know on their own.
This system has been monetized. In fact, I have good friends, authoritatively, that I can call them as I'm talking to you now. They go to Karo, which is in the FCT in Abuja. You collect from that duplication of the forms. They collect with money. People are there making money from this process.
This phone, they say we have to buy it. After buying ourselves, but then they say we are not supposed to buy it. That those selling it are just collecting our money. It's for free.
We made efforts to have officials of the commission to comment on the allegations, but none of them was willing to respond. But the experience of another enrollee who has also completed the process appears to clarify some of the allegations raised.
When some are saying they are collecting money, it's not as if they are collecting money. If your plastic one expired, you have to go cafe and generate remitter, then and use 5,000 naira to renew it. Then if you lost the paper own, that NIN, what you will do is that you go cafe and generate remitter, then you go to bank and pay 500 naira to the account plus VAT fee, it gives you 661 naira. That is it. It's not that they are collecting money. When you go cafe and go to bank and pay, they will give you a teller. If you copy the teller and the remitter slip, then take it inside, they will process for you. That's the money they are talking about.
Although the Commission had given the assurances that all prospective enrollees will be attended to before the January 19th and February 9th deadlines, more work really needs to be done to deliver on this promise.
The case of a structure demolished by the Kaduna State Urban Development and Planning Authority over what was thought to be a sex party has a new twist. The Kaduna State Urban Development and Planning Authority says the property in question does not have valid documents, hence the reason for the demolition. But the owner of the property is yet to release an official statement on the matter.
The saga of the demolished restaurant continues with twists along the way. To be fair to those trying to understand, let's bring you up to speed. It all began when an invitation to an X-rated party in Kaduna State went viral, generating mixed reviews from the police who busted the suspected organizers.
They must realize that having a sex party anywhere in the state or even outside the state for whatever reason is condemnable and legally criminalized by virtue of sections 166, 168, 260, and 368 of the Kaduna State Penal Code Law 2017, which prescribe punishment for 1 year imprisonment or 10,000 naira fine for public nuisance. Same punishment applies for obscene or indecent acts, 14 years imprisonment, and fine of 100,000 naira.
Then the state government went in a different direction, choosing to demolish the structure. A bitter pill to swallow, as the owner of the restaurant feels the move is extremely harsh. She insists mischief makers were out on the prowl.
I just want justice to take its full course on this because we are innocent. It's Asha Kings and Queens restaurant, not a hotel.
And now the Kaduna State government, through the Office of the State Urban Development and Planning Authority, has come out on the reason it leveled the building.
Indications that an activity in violation of the COVID regulation was planned to be held in Asa Lodge drew attention to the property and made it necessary to examine its status and the building. Checks of the government record shows that the building housing Asa Lodge has neither a valid title nor development permit in accordance with the purpose being used. Once due diligence revealed that the illegal status of the building, there was need for enforcement action without the notification required that the law compels for holder of the valid title and the development permit.
Channels Television made contact with the property owner, who insists he has all valid documents. He, however, promised to make them public after conferring with his lawyers. The matter, it seems, is just warming up.
By the end of January, Nigeria is expected to take delivery of approximately 100,000 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines. Free delivery of 42 million doses of the vaccines, which will be a combination of all available and approved vaccines in the market, will be secured to cover 20% of the Nigerian population. This was disclosed by the Executive Director of the National Primary Health Development Agency at the weekly briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Linda. And Nigeria has opened talks with the People's Republic of China on how to procure COVID-19 vaccines for the country. Speaking after a closed-door meeting with the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema says China has been assisting the country since the advent of the pandemic. Mr. Onyema announced that both countries also agreed to set an intergovernmental committee to coordinate all aspects of cooperation between both countries. And it's time for business news. Here's Anne Wawodo.
Marachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. We begin with predictions on the global economy. It is expected to expand by 4% this year, and that's after contracting by 4.3% last year, and that's according to the World Bank. In its Global Economic Prospects for 2021 report released today, the International Finance Institution says it is attributing the expected rebound on global economy to the gradual rollout of COVID-19 vaccine across several countries. That report also explains that the global recovery is expected to strengthen over the forecast horizon as confidence, consumption and trade gradually improve, supported by ongoing vaccination. Meanwhile, the president of the World Bank, David Malpass, says that although the global economy appears to be recovering from one of its deepest recessions, it's still remaining more than 5% below its pre-pandemic trend. And let's talk about oil prices. It has jumped by as much as 5% today. That's after the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its oil-producing allies known as OPEC Plus agreed to hold output largely steady in the month of February. The surge was also boosted by the surprise announcement that Saudi Arabia has agreed an extra 1 million barrels per day production cut beginning next month into March, following the outcome of a virtual meeting held today. International oil price benchmark Brent crude futures surged by 4.9% to settle at $53.60 a barrel, while its contemporary, that's the U.S. West Texas Intermediate, climbed 4.85% to settle at $49.93 a barrel, and that's after hitting $50 mark for the first time since February 2020. Electricity consumers in Nigeria will begin to pay more following an upward adjustment in tariff by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. In a circular sent to all the 11 distribution companies, the NERC says the multi-year tariff order takes effect from January the 1st, 2021. The Electricity Commission explains that the minor review of the revised MYTO 2020 order cites the impact of inflation rates in Nigeria, foreign exchange rate, gas prices, available generation capacity, and material variances to the accompanying capital expenditure required for the evacuation and distribution of available generation capacity. Meanwhile, the federal government has refuted reports claiming an increase in electricity tariff by the National Electricity Regulatory Commission. Speaking on our Politics Today program, the Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Mr. Festus Keyamo, explains that NERC only readjusted certain electricity tariffs across several bands to ensure conformity with appropriate consumption rates.
We have not, there has been no increase in tariff. What we agreed to do was to freeze certain bands. We have band A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. And so we adjusted. In the interim, what we did was to adjust certain bands and to ensure that certain persons who are supposed to be on some band are not wrongly put on some other bands. So what has just been done is adjustment of certain bands, but there has not been any increase in tariffs. What NEC has released does not reflect what we agreed upon at the level of the committee. So I can say I was not consulted. Members of the committee, they were not consulted, and we just spoke this evening. What I just said earlier was the actual position of the committee. What NEC has released now is not actually reflective of what we decided at the committee level. So we have I think we're trying to fix a meeting for Thursday to find out exactly what happened and then to take it from there. But I can assure you that we'll soon come out with a statement before Nigerians to show the true position of things. But what we did at the committee level was not to increase the tariff, but to adjust certain tariffs from one band to the other. We removed certain tariffs from one band and then, used it to cushion some other bands.
Just one day after crossing the 41,000 level, the benchmark indicated equities performance fell back to 40,000 index points, down by 1.83% at the close of trading today. About 393 billion naira was knocked off from the 459 billion naira gained earlier on the first trading day of the year, after sell pressure took toll on the shares of MTN Nigeria and key equities from 4 major sectors of the market. At the same time, performance on the price chart ended with a widely negative margin of 34 losers, led by 10% drop on Owando's share price against 16 gainers, led by 9.7% increase on gases. But a view of the activity chart shows that there was more 50% increase in the total volume of transactions today, and that's in contrast to the 211 million units recorded in yesterday's turnover, and that reflects that investors are still having interest for stocks. And that's Business News. Thank you for watching. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot. And British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says more than 1.3 million people in the United Kingdom have been vaccinated against COVID-19 as England begins a new lockdown to stem the spread of the virus. The minister says the latest data shows 2% of the population currently infected, representing more than 1 million people in England. Meanwhile, Americans in the U.S. state of Georgia have been voting today to decide on 2 seats to complete the Senate and which party leads Congress. The Democrats need to win the 2 seats up for grabs to gain full control of Congress and with it the powers to push forward President-elect Joe Biden's agenda, while President Donald Trump needs only to win one of the seats to retain the Senate. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The leader of the far-right Proud Boys group has been arrested in Washington, D.C. Enrique Tarrio faces misdemeanor destruction of property charges for allegedly burning a Black Lives Matter flag last month. Mr. Tarrio and his group, which have a history of street violence, have vocally supported President Trump's efforts to overturn the election results. Protests by the Proud Boys and other groups are expected to occur on Tuesday and Wednesday. Gulf leaders are meeting in Saudi Arabia for their annual summit after a resolution to the bitter dispute with Qatar seems to be within reach. Saudi Arabia has announced the reopening of land borders with Qatar after nearly 3.5 years. The kingdom, with Egypt, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, have cut diplomatic and trade ties and have imposed a land, sea and air blockade on the Gulf state in mid-2017. The bloc has accused Doha of supporting terrorist groups and being too close to Iran. These allegations have been consistently denied by Qatar. The Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadéra has won re-election. Mr. Touadéra has won a second term with 53% of the votes. The election and its aftermath, however, have been marked by violence as rebel groups have attempted to take over the city of Bangassou ahead of results being announced. The president has been in office since 2016, but has so far struggled to control the armed militias. Mr. Touadéra has blamed much of the electoral unrest on the former president François Bozizé, whose candidacy has been denied by the country's top court. South Korea is planning to send a delegation to Tehran to seek the release of the oil tanker seized by Iranian forces. On Sunday, Iran seized a South Korean tanker transporting ethanol in the Straits of Hormuz while traveling from Saudi Arabia to the United Arab Emirates over pollution violations. The move seems to have come in retaliation after $7 billion in Iranian funds were frozen in Korean banks due to sanctions imposed by the United States. Australia's Prime Minister has said that Julian Assange is free to return home if the US extradition bill fails in the British courts. On Monday, a UK judge blocked Mr. Assange's extradition to the US, citing mental health concerns. The WikiLeaks founder has been indicted in 2019 on 17 counts of violation and Espionage Act and faces up to 175 years in a US jail over the charges. Lawyers for the US government have said they will appeal the decision. This means the case could go all the way to the British Supreme Court, a process that could take up to 3 years. Hundreds of employees at Google and its parent company Alphabet have formed a union. The move represents the biggest and most organised challenge yet to the company's executive leadership. The union's formation has come amid years of rising employee tensions over the company's workplace practices and operational decisions, such as Google's handling of a sexual misconduct claim, which resulted in a massive employee protest last year. And finally, Russia has officially ended the ban on new female employees at the wheel of underground trains. The first 12 women have joined the ranks of Moscow metro drivers after Russia's Ministry of Labour made changes to the country's legislation. The job was previously listed among hard jobs with harmful or dangerous conditions, which could not be filled by women. This is considered a major victory for women in the country, as they can now be employed as tractor drivers and long-haul truckers. Moscow Metro is one of the most heavily travelled subway systems in the world, transporting about 9 million people every day. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The Confederation of African Football has announced that Confederation Cup first round second leg involving Rivers United and Bloemfontein of South Africa will not hold on Wednesday, January the 6th. This followed the request by the Nigeria Football Federation to postpone and possibly relocate the game after the Nigeria Center for Disease Control refused to step down on some of the COVID-19 protocols for the South African contingent. That's Sports News. Amarachi, back to you.
Thanks, Olumide. And the main news again. Southeast state governors today expressed worry over killings by bandits and the rising cases of kidnappings in the region. They vowed to find lasting solution to the problem at the end of their virtual meeting. That's it on the News at 10. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.